My sister has always been obsessed with me in an overprotective kind of way. She installed tracking apps on every device I owned, set up cameras around my apartment without asking, called me 17 times a day to check in. When I went on dates, she'd somehow show up at the same restaurant. Different table, different outfit, but always watching. One time I went hiking with friends, came back to 43 missed calls and a police wellness check at my door because I'd been unreachable for 5 hours. My friends started avoiding me. My girlfriend broke up with me because my sister kept messaging her, asking about my whereabouts, my mood, whether I was eating enough. Your sister's not normal, she said on her way out, and you let her control your entire life. I thought she was insane, told her she needed therapy. Begged her to just back off, give me space to breathe. She'd always promised to do better. Then, 2 days later, I'd find a new tracking device hidden in my gym bag. Last month, I finally snapped, changed my number and blocked her on everything. Deleted every app she'd installed, and I mean Times Every Times app. Factory reset my phone just to be sure. Ripped out all 6 cameras from my apartment and mailed them back to her with a note that said, "Get help, I'm done." For 3 weeks, I felt free. I went to bars without my phone buzzing every 10 minutes. Stayed out past midnight without explaining myself. Started talking to a girl named Rachel who thought I was normal, who didn't know anything about my psycho sister. It felt like I could finally breathe. Then last Tuesday, I woke up in a hospital. Fluorescent lights, beeping machines, tubes in my arms. My head felt like someone had stuffed it with cotton. A nurse noticed I was awake and immediately called for the doctor. "Welcome back," the doctor said, checking my vitals. "You've been unconscious for 9 days. 9 days? Carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty heater in your building," he explained. "Your landlord had been ignoring complaints for months. You're very lucky to be alive." Lucky? I didn't feel lucky. I felt confused and terrified. "How did you find me?" I asked. The doctor glanced toward the door. "Your sister. She's been here every single day." My stomach dropped. She walked in a moment later, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy knot. She'd clearly been wearing the same clothes for days. "Hey," she said quietly, sitting in the chair beside my bed. I wanted to be angry. Wanted to scream at her for probably tracking me somehow, for invading my privacy even after I'd cut her off, but I was too weak. "How did you know?" I finally asked. She looked down at her hands. "I hid a camera inside your smoke detector, the one mounted on the ceiling near your kitchen. You never checked that one." Of course she did. When the feed went dark for 6 hours straight, I knew something was wrong. You never leave your apartment dark for that long, even when you're sleeping. She drove 4 hours to my place, broke down my door, and dragged me outside before calling 911. The doctor had already told me another hour and I'd have been dead. My brain would have shut down completely. "I know you think I'm crazy," she said, her voice cracking, "but you're all I have left." I didn't understand. We had aunts, uncles, cousins. Our family wasn't small. That's when she pulled out an old photo from her wallet worn at the edges, folded and unfolded 1,000 times. Me, her, and our parents. We looked so young, maybe 6 or 7 years old. I'd never seen it before. "This was taken the day before the crash," she whispered. "The day before what crash?" My mind was blank. "You don't remember," she said, tears spilling over. "The doctor said you might not. You hit your head pretty hard, had a concussion. You were in the hospital for weeks." She took a shaky breath. "Mom and Dad were driving us to the beach for your birthday. You got carsick before we even left town. Started throwing up in the backseat. You begged me to stay home with you. Said you didn't want to go anymore. I didn't want to stay. I was so excited about the beach, but you were crying, and Mom said one of us should stay with Grandma." Her hands were shaking now, so I stayed, and they left. And 3 hours later, a drunk driver crossed the center line on the highway. "I've spent 15 years making sure I never lose you the same way," she said. "I know it's wrong. I know I'm suffocating you. But every time you don't answer your phone, every time you go somewhere without telling me, all I see is that police officer at our door." I reached for her hand. For the first time in my life, I understood. She wasn't crazy. She was just terrified, and she'd saved my life.